The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
I think we are kind of just holding hands in all of this and just trying to get along and get through it. It's a tough thing to have happen in your town, and you don't want the town to have any sort of reputation of something like this because it's so not like Cohasset.
It's very disturbing, very heart-wrenching that this happened to this family and these poor children, and I think the community's coming together and trying to do something to support them, and that's the best they can do. It's really a tragedy.
It is opening day in the murder trial for Brian Walshe, and we're taking a closer look at those Google searches that prosecutors say connect him to his wife's homicide. And the father of the teenager found dead on a cruise ship is speaking out and demanding that the person responsible face the consequences. Plus, Taylor Schabusiness is due back in court today. She's facing sentencing for her attack on a prison guard. Could we see more antics? We're going to find out together. And we're examining the different faces of pageant queen Trinity Pogue. She's on trial for the death of her boyfriend's baby. Could her looks tip the scales of justice? It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Monday morning to you, and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. I hope you had a wonderful holiday weekend. We missed you here, and we've planned a great show for you. So grab that cup of coffee or tea, whatever you're having right now. It's time for my opening statement. How long before a body starts to smell? How long for someone to be missing to inherit? Can you identify a body with broken teeth? Prosecutors say that those are just a few of the questions that Brian Walshe Googled on his son's iPad. They say he also Googled, can you be charged with murder without a body? How to clean blood from a wooden floor? And 10 ways to dispose of a dead body if you really need to. Sounds like a real gem of a husband that Anna Walshe had, huh? This guy's a convicted fraudster. He's awaiting his federal sentencing, and he picks up another criminal case. One where he's accused of murdering his wife, Anna, dismembering her body and disposing of it, and lying to police about it all. This admitted liar pleads to the crimes of abusing his wife's corpse and obstructing justice, but he's proclaiming his innocence with respect to the murder allegation. That's an interesting strategy, right? So that means he'll either likely blame the boogeyman or claim it was an accident during an argument or something like that. My question is, if it was an accident, why didn't he call 911? Why didn't he try to save the life of the mother of his 3 boys? Instead, this animal goes out and gets a hacksaw, gets a full coverage suit, buckets, trash bags, and enough rags and cleaning products for the whole entire neighborhood. My point is, either way, whether the boogeyman did it or it accidentally happened, he didn't need to cover it up. And he certainly didn't need to dismember her body. Unless, of course, he wanted her dead and wanted her gone so he could collect on her life insurance policies and maybe sell some of the expensive real estate that she owned. Just a little something to think about as we get ready for this case to kick off. And I hope and I pray that we finally see justice happen for beautiful Anna Walshe. That's my opening statement on this Monday morning. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
And Judge, it sounds like just one witness. We're asking for a sequestration, but that may be a moot point.
All right.
It is one witness, Your Honor.
We're off the record.
All right, so in Wisconsin, we've got Taylor Schabusiness back in court for sentencing on her prison attack case. She's pleaded no contest in this one. Sentencing set to start at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. In New York, we've got accused killer Luigi Mangione in court. He's got a suppression hearing. His attorneys are trying to limit some of the evidence, including a 3D printed gun and some journal writings. We're going to have live reports for you throughout the day on that one. And in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the case I was just talking about, the murder trial for Brian Walshe, set to begin at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, and that is your top story. So let's talk about this. Walshe is the father of 3, accused of murdering and dismembering his beautiful wife, Anna. This happened nearly 3 years ago. The couple has 3 young, beautiful boys together. This case likely to hinge on 2 looming realities. Anna's body never been found, and there is a trail of Google searches.
How long before a body starts to smell? At 4:58 a.m., how to stop a body from decomposing. At 5:20 a.m., he searched how to embalm a body. At 5:47 a.m., 10 ways to dispose of a dead body if you really need to.
Now, in addition to those disturbing Google searches, there's also some key physical evidence as well.
He is seen purchasing numerous items, including a Lennox high-tension hacksaw, 48 terry cloth towels, 200 disposable rags, trash bags. In the Swampscott dumpster, they found items, including a set of Volkswagen keys, Anna Walsh's COVID vaccination card. Also located in the dumpster, Your Honor, were rugs. These rugs contain red-brown staining as well, and a piece of a Gucci necklace consistent with one that Anna Walshe wore.
And judging from his jail tenure alone, Walshe doesn't seem like the most popular guy, as he's already been stabbed in the jail. So let's talk about this case. Let's bring in our guests now. I want to welcome in Tommy Pope and Mario Gallucci. Good morning to you, gentlemen, 2 very high-profile, seasoned attorneys. All right, let's start with the Google searches. Let's get a little refresher from the prosecutor on just some of what Mr. Walshe was searching on his son's iPad.
There was one other earlier Google search, which would be of note. On December 27th, defendant Googled, what's the best state to divorce for a man? Rather than divorce, it is believed that Brian Walshe dismembered Anna Walshe and discarded her body. The bags were later discarded in Swampscott and contained Anna's property and the items used to clean up, as well as the DNA that was left behind. The Commonwealth is asking the defendant be held without bail for the murder of his wife.
All right, so let's take a look at some of what prosecutors say he searched on his child's iPad. His boys were 2, 4, and 6 at the time that their mother was taken from them. So he searched, they say, how long before a body starts to smell? 10 ways to dispose of a dead body if you really need to. How long for someone to be missing to inherit? How to clean blood from a wooden floor. Mario Gallucci, would you start us off, please, with your thoughts on these searches?
Good morning, Julie. So I had this exact case in the mystery of the sliding door, the Jonathan Krupe case in Staten Island, New York, where he did the same searches. So what we tried to do there was find an innocent reason for him to do those searches. And he was a school teacher, and he was teaching Macbeth, and he was also teaching science to elementary school students. So we were able to, in that case, at least put some evidence forward that he was preparing for class lessons. He was comparing Shakespeare to modern day science and what have you. So we've tried to find an innocent reason for him to do those searches. I don't see an innocent reason in the Walshe case for him to do those searches. But the searches themselves in this case are just the icing on the case. I mean, the evidence from what I've seen is pretty overwhelming. I mean, who purchases, you know, what is it, 400 terry cloth towels and, you know, a Lennox blade? And, you know, those searches themselves are just the icing on the cake in this case.
Yeah, this is really bad stuff, Mario. You're right. Tommy Pope, tell me, when this guy pleaded recently to 2 of the crimes he's been accused of, the dismemberment of Anna's body, and then also the obstruction of justice and lying to police all about it. What do you think the strategy was for him behind that?
I knew when I was going to be on today with Mario, I was going to ask him, because maybe they ought to hire him with the school teacher strategy, though. I will point out, I think that 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover would have been a better search, and he could have just done that, and we wouldn't be talking about him today. But he apparently missed out on that one. But I think it's must show the desperation, and it must show, as Mario said, what apparently, at least from outside looking in, what a stacked case it is. And so they're looking for, any light at the end of the tunnel. And I think looking to have the opportunity to maybe put, like you said in your opening, whether it's the boogeyman or where I was wondering about the kids. It's going to be interesting to me, and maybe it's already out there, how, if it's his son's iPad, how they connect him with being the one making the searches. I mean, you wouldn't think a father would lay it off on his kids, but we see families killing family members. So blaming your child for something you did, killing your spouse, probably wouldn't be that much of a stretch. But I think that's what he's doing. I could even see the children did, one of the boys did it, and I wanted to protect him, and that's why I did all this. I think he's trying to cap out his sentence.
Yeah. That's an interesting point, Tommy. Does it go to sentencing? Thank you for that. Maybe. Mario, I would love for you to weigh in on the same question. Any benefit you can see here to doing what he did? And I mean, the plea, yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree with Tommy here. I think that he is trying to reduce his exposure and say, you know what, these are the things I did do. I did these things. She died, whether it was an accident, what Tommy said, maybe one of the kids did it, but how do I reduce my exposure here? I admitted guilt to the things I did do. I didn't commit this murder. This wasn't me. I didn't do that. And you can't prove I did that. So he reduces exposure. He's got the sentencing on the fraud case coming up. This will more than likely run consecutive to that. So in order for him to reduce his exposure, he needs to try whatever strategy he can to do that.
Sure. No, appreciate that, Mario. Let's take a look at some of what prosecutors say that he purchased. January 4th was the date.
On January 4th, the following day, the defendant went to Home Goods and TJ Maxx. He purchased towels, as well as bath mats and men's clothing. At 4:15 that day, on the 4th, he went to Lowe's, where he purchased squeegees and a trash can. On January 4th, when Cohasset Police went to the house on the well-being check, officers observed his Volvo with seats down and a plastic liner in the back of the car. The next day, a view of the Volvo showed his seats folded down, floor mats with some dirt, and the carpet appeared to show fresh vacuum streaks. When asked about the liner, the defendant said he threw in the trash.
Oof. Okay, Mario, so you touched on this earlier. If you just had the searches alone, a little easier to contend with if you're a defense attorney, but the supplies, all the supplies, what do you think that's going to do in terms of tipping the scales here?
So it substantiates what he pled guilty to, and that's probably why he took the plea to what he's pleading to. And it does not prove murder. It proves that he dismembered and disposed of a corpse. So there's nothing there that indicates that he killed his wife, except, the searches. But you're going to have to get around that somehow by saying that I did these searches to get rid of the corpse because whatever happened in that house happened in that house. I did not murder my wife. The only search that really hurts him with the murder is the inheritance search. And maybe he'd be able to get around that because he just says that, after the body was discovered by him and disposed of, he then wanted to find out, when he was going to get his payout.
And you hit right on it, Mario. It seems that that's probably where the prosecutors are going to go here. As you know, she had 2 life insurance policies on herself. She had a magnificent career in real estate and some very, very valuable properties. And he owed money. He owed money in restitution, as you both know, because of that federal fraud case where he was selling fake Andy Warhol paintings. We got to leave it here for now. We're going to go into the courtroom live at 9 a.m. and Tommy Pope, you'll be there for that action with us. Tommy and Mario, stand by for more cues right now, please. Friends at home, if you want to get some more coffee, go do that. I'm going to do the same when we come back. Returning to the cruise ship death case. Anna Kepner's father now demanding that the person responsible for her death face the consequences. Plus, we're watching as Taylor Schabusiness is set to be back in court to be sentenced for her attack on a prison guard.
The Court TV podcast will return.
Welcome back. Now for what's trending in true crime this week. The suspect in Anna Kepner's homicide on a Carnival cruise ship could end up testifying at his parents' custody hearing. So Anna's 16-year-old stepbrother, known as TH in court documents, is one of the kids affected by that custody battle. According to the court documents, he's also suspected of killing his stepsister during their cruise. Now, Anna was on the cruise with her dad, her stepmom, and her step-siblings. She was reportedly found dead underneath her bed in her cabin, possibly covered up by some blankets and some life vests. Anna's stepmother wants the child custody civil case to be sealed off from the public. And she's also requested a gag order to protect her son's privacy. Well, at the first custody hearing, her ex-husband's attorney had this to say about the cruise.
Your Honor, it's our understanding that because the cruise was in international waters, that the young child, not the 9-year-old, but the 16-year-old, was allowed to drink. The teenagers were given their own room in which to stay. Just a lot of circumstances that showed that the mother in this case was not exercising appropriate supervision over this child or the other child involved.
Anna's father, Chris Kepner, told People magazine that he wants his stepson to face the consequences for what he did. And Anna's aunt told a local TV station that if the boy is a suspect, why hasn't he been charged? So we're asking the same thing. Are authorities nearing an arrest? Let's talk about that. Let's bring back in attorney Mario Gallucci and welcome in board-certified forensic pathologist Dr. Priya Banerjee and private investigator Manuel Gomez. Good morning to you all. So, Manuel, let me begin with you. As somebody who has lots of experience working cases and doing investigations, what would you say to the question of, well, if there's a suspect, why no arrest?
Well, that's a good question, Julie. And the reason why is you have to look at the FBI. When they got on this cruise ship, they only had about 6 hours to go to the crime scene, take pictures, collect all the video evidence, and then they had to leave. Because the cruise industry, unfortunately, like my partner Serene says, is that they put profit over people. Okay? That cruise ship left 6 hours later, cleaned that room, and they were using it again. All right. And that's the problem in this case, why it's delayed for this guy to be arrested. But it's mind blowing because this is what I call a home run hit. The CCTV cameras showed that girl, Anna, enter the room, and then it showed the brother enter the room. Anna never left. The brother was the only one to leave. The only time Anna left that room was in a body bag. And unless Spider-Man climbed through the window of the side of that room, who else killed her other than the brother?
That's an excellent point, Manuel. Excellent. Let's talk a little bit about whether the autopsy and the findings could influence charging one way or another, the degree of charging. Dr. Priya Banerjee, of course, I want to go to you on this. Some people were stunned to hear the news that Anna has already been cremated. I'm curious, does that concern you that there may not be an opportunity to go back and do a second autopsy on her body if necessary?
Right, so that's a tricky, you want to always weigh the family's sort of closure along with handling of the body. The way I handle these things in my practice and probably my colleagues is that we do as thorough a job as you can the first time around. There is potentially, policies in place that allow us to retain certain important parts of the body and findings. So if there's an issue with, let's say, strangulation, I actually take it in every case, the hyoid bone. You can preserve certain parts of her body to look at later, to investigate further, like under the microscope with X-ray, whatever, anthropology, whatever the case may be, and still release the rest of her to the family for closure. I think that's probably the best way of handling most situations. It's sort of improper to endlessly hold a body. And so I think that's the way my colleagues have, headed in this direction. And it's a completely family choice for cremation versus burial. It always is more difficult. Obviously, you can't go back to do any kind of further examination. Usually, I do perform second autopsies, and I would have done it sort of closer to death anyway. So I'm hoping that this doesn't compromise the case in any fashion.
Really great insight you're sharing with us, Dr. Priya. Thank you for all of that. Mario Gallucci, I want to ask you about the legal situation with the stepbrother. And so what we've learned about him being a suspect is what we've just gleaned from his own father in the court filings, because his biological father, and biological mother, who would be the stepmom to Anna, they're feuding over custody and have been, and now this has really disrupted the process, shall we say. Mary, what do you think the likelihood is? Now, the stepbrother, he's supposed to testify on Friday of this week. What do you think the likelihood is that he's going to get asked when he comes in to testify at that hearing about the incident with Anna?
So they're more than likely going to try to question him about that so they can have some additional evidence. But he has, a constitutional right. He's got his Fifth Amendment right. And without a doubt, he's going to have an attorney there. And he's probably going to invoke his right not to, to testify against himself. And that's what they would be asking him to do. I mean, if they're asking him about, custody, that's one thing. If they're asking him about how she died, that's another thing. And his attorney will be there to prompt him when he has to invoke his Fifth Amendment right.
Yeah, this is helpful, Mario. So we could expect the questions about, preferences in living, daily routine, the common questions you might see in a custody hearing. But no doubt they're going to go there with this incident that's in question. And as you noted so astutely, counsel's going to stop him from saying anything incriminating. Let's take a look at a clip here. This is Anna's ex-boyfriend. And what's interesting about this is he noted what some would say is some peculiar, maybe obsessive behavior going on with the stepbrother, who is the, potential suspect here. Here we go.
Whenever I was on FaceTime with her, and I was on FaceTime with her, and she was laying down, and the brother tried to go on top of her.
Okay, Manuel, there have been some reports that stepbrother had a fascination, maybe an obsession or infatuation, something with his stepsister, Anna. What do you think, Manuel? What do you think about the situation that these two teenagers were in this cabin together?
Well, the first thing I want to say is shame on both of the parents, okay? You put this beautiful 18-year-old girl in a room with two boys. One of them being a 16-year-old boy with his hormones going off the walls, okay? And is not blood related to this girl. You put her in a very dangerous situation. And Julie, I want to point out something. 80% of the murders in the United States are crimes of passion. Crimes of passion. This was one of those. There is no doubt, as I said in the beginning when we first started talking about this, my primary suspect was the brother, and that this was some type of I want to have sex with my stepsister fantasy, and that's what most likely happened here. And this is why she had marks on her neck, and she was choked out. Okay, she's dead because of asphyxiation, and there's no doubt in my mind that this was a crime of passion, and that's how this case will most likely end.
Excellent analysis, Manuel Gomez, Mario Gallucci, Dr. Priya Banerjee. Stand by kindly, please. We'll hit a break. When we come back, here's what's coming up for you on Opening Statements.
So, Mr. Business, what is your plea to the amended count disorderly conduct?
No contest. We ain't doing no contest.
No contest. Mr. Business, I accept your plea. I find that it's been freely, voluntarily, intelligently made. I find that there's a factual base for your plea. I accept it. Find you guilty and enter judgment.
She is back in Shabusiness. That's right. We're talking about convicted killer Taylor Shabusiness returning to the courtroom this morning. This is all over a prison attack case. She's set to be sentenced. We'll spotlight it next. Plus, could the different faces of pageant queen Trinity Pogue affect the jury at her upcoming trial?
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
Welcome back to Opening Statements. Now to our spotlight. Taylor Shabusiness is due back in court today to be sentenced after she pleaded no contest last month to attacking a prison guard.
Do you believe that you are freely, voluntarily, and intelligently changing your plea today?
Yeah, I'm going in with the plea because that's what I put my initials down on.
Okay. And do you have any questions of Mr. Freilich?
Never.
Never. And you agree that there's a factual basis to your plea, correct? To the disorderly conduct plea?
Yeah, violent behavior.
All right. What is your plea to the amended count disorderly conduct?
No contest. We ain't doing no contest.
No contest. Mr. Business, I accept your plea. I find that it's been freely, voluntarily, intelligently made. I find that there's a factual base for your plea. I accept it. Find you guilty and enter judgment.
So the convicted killer reportedly had asked to have a staple removed from her arm. Well, then she lunged at the nurse who was treating her and then hit a prison guard when he tried to intervene. The attack was a surprise to no one who's familiar with Taylor Shabusiness and her history. She made a name for herself in the courtroom with her frequent attacks on her own attorneys.
And Judge, it sounds like just one witness. We're asking for sequestration, but that may be a moot point.
All right. It is one witness, Your Honor. We're off the record.
Ooh, so the question we're asking this morning, will she be on her best behavior today? Let's bring back in our legal eagles, Tommy Pope and Mario Gallucci. All right, Tommy, what do you say?
I tell you, Julie, I got my fix because every weekend I like to watch UFC fights, and we didn't have any this weekend, so I got fixed up. I noticed a couple things, though. If you look at that last clip, she saw the camera, and then decided to jump on him. I just think this is her bit, and I think every time she's not strapped down or not, she thinks she's got nothing to lose. She laughs at the table. Watch her. It's right there. She looked at the camera. Good time to beat on your latest lawyer. And so I think given the opportunity, she's going to do it. I'll also point out, all the law enforcement guys, we train for this all the time and never get to use it. It's kind of like shooting your gun. And so I've never seen so many court guys respond so quickly as they did there. They've been waiting on this one for a long time. They hope that you bring her in unstrapped next time.
Oh, yeah, they're ready to go, Tommy. You're so right. I got a clip pertaining to that. Remember when her defense attorney was requesting that she not be shackled at any court proceedings? Let's look back at that.
So the last time we were in court, we were scheduled for a preliminary hearing. At the preliminary hearing, there was an outburst by Ms. Shabusiness. At that point, she was tackled to the floor and she was removed from court.
Today, my client is in a chair with wheels. Her legs are strapped, her waist is strapped, and she's got handcuffs on. I would ask respectfully to the court, at future hearings, I'd ask that she not be shackled. I have a relationship with her. I've represented her before. I think we have a good relationship, and I'd ask that you consider my request for her not to be shackled during the trial or any future proceedings.
Oh, Mario, that attorney's brave, isn't he? What do you think?
So, look, this poor woman's got some significant mental health issues. She's been self-medicating herself for years, but the attorney doesn't want her shackled because it does not give a good appearance in front of a jury. So if she comes out looking like Hannibal Lecter strapped to a chair like that, the jury's going to look at that and say, wow, you know, what should we be afraid of this person? And that's absolutely not what you want to happen when you're in front of a jury. I could see it, you know, this was a closed proceeding. There's nobody there except for the judge and the court personnel for that proceeding. But going forward, if there was a trial in the case, I would make the same request. I would make the request that she not be shackled, that she be given civilian clothing, and that she look presentable. It's all part of, getting a fair trial.
Definitely, Mario. Point taken. And she wound up pleading no contest. And if I remember correctly, I think the state might have even amended the charge. We need to check up on that because I'm pretty sure it was knocked down a bit. Because at the end of the day, this doesn't matter. The sentencing won't, in terms of changing. It's not like she's going to get out sooner. Depending upon what happens, she's in for life. Thank God. But at sentencing today, I suppose the importance of it bringing some closure here and putting this case to bed. Tommy, do you think that she's going to be behaving? I mean, really and truly, do you think we may see some remorse for the attack on the person who was helping her, for crying out loud?
Mario beat me to it. I don't see it. It was funny. I felt sorry that attorney, you like to think you have a good relationship, with people. I used to, when I was a prosecutor, just even walking the halls, the same guys that I'm prosecuting all the time for drugs, call me by my first name, and we'd joke right before I sent them off to prison. But it was funny when he looked at her again, watching your video, and he said, "We have a good relationship." Well, she wasn't smiling and nodding. So I would suggest he wear an old suit that day and not his good glasses.
Leave the good glasses at home. That's right. Good suit at home. Good advice, Tommy Pope. Mario Gallucci, tell me what you expect if you had to kind of predict how it's going to go this afternoon when she gets to the courtroom.
Well, it's her last hurrah. This is the last time she's really going to be in front of a camera. So she's probably, if she's not strapped in, she's probably going to go for the gusto, I would assume. I mean, she appears to thrive on the attention. So this is the last time she's ever going to have an opportunity for that attention. And I agree with Tommy. I mean, I represent people now that I prosecuted when I was a prosecutor. And you develop relationships with people. But somebody like Ms. Shabiznis, it's very difficult to develop any type of relationship with because she suffers from this mental illness, and as it goes untreated, this is what you're going to get.
Mm-hmm. You're so right, Mario, and I love the point you made about people that you prosecuted, now you represent. Many people are, frequent flyers, as we call them, in this. They just can't get out of the system. They just continue to repeat patterns of behavior, and thank goodness they have you, Mario. You're sticking around to do one more segment on opening statements here. Tommy Pope, we're so grateful that we're going to have you for Court TV Live, and I want to show everybody at home a look at the courtroom where we're going at 9 a.m. So that's coming up. First, here we go. There's Brian Walshe's mom. There she is. Looks a lot like him, doesn't she? Wow. The resemblance really, really strong there. She is supporting her son, and he's going to need that support because these are some very bad facts. This case set to open up any minute now. We'll be right back.
This is the Court TV Podcast.
A former Georgia pageant queen accused of murdering her boyfriend's baby is set to go on trial today. Jury selection set to start up soon. Trinity Pogue, arrested last year, 5 days after 18-month-old Romeo Angeles was found unresponsive in her college dorm room. Now, little baby Romeo is also known by the name Jackson, and he sadly died at a hospital later. The indictment is accusing Trinity Pogue of, quote, inflicting blunt force trauma to Jackson's head and Jackson's torso and causing, quote, serious disfigurement to his liver and rendering his brain useless. Now, even though her trial is set to start today, there may still be some issues to go over with the judge before the openings begin. Apparently, there's some question as to whether her Miranda rights were violated.
They also provided me, when talking about the Miranda rights, they provided me with police reports. And I was not aware of, we've got a GBI file, we got police reports from all the local police initially. The initial police report out of Lieutenant or Officer Allen was at least mentioned in the GBI report. He did not himself have a report. He was off duty, I think, and working as a security guard for Phoebe Extra, get extra money. And he didn't make a report. We knew he existed. But when I got the APD report here, the two other officers that are mentioned, Eric English is one that made a narrative report, and the other one was John Webb. And I only got this, I don't know, a week or so ago, but they do have some mention of having had some conversations with Ms. Pogue that might be subject to some raising the issue about Miranda. I had not filed a motion about that because I didn't have it until very recently. The other Miranda issues, GBI agent did read the Miranda rights, had it signed by Ms. Pogue, etc. We don't feel like that's going to be a big issue, but we may still need to put it on record. I understand maybe a short motion, a short hearing may need to be done for that as well.
All right.
But these other officers, there is some information there that I think could possibly be suppressed.
All right, so question of whether her constitutional rights were violated if those warnings pursuant to Miranda versus Arizona weren't properly given. All right, so we'll see if her lawyer resurrects that when court starts up. This woman was crowned Miss Donaldsonville in 2023. Donaldsonville is near the Alabama, Florida, Georgia state lines. And between her court appearances, her mugshot, her social media, and all of her pageant photos and videos, you can see her looks have varied. So how will Trinity Pogue present herself to the jury? And what really happened to little baby Jackson? Let's tackle these questions in turn with our guests. Attorney Mario Gallucci is with us, and so is Dr. Priya Banerjee. Mario, let's start with the optics in the courtroom, a concern for any trial, every defendant. Tell me here, if you're representing Trinity Pogue, what kind of a look would you be recommending for her as she goes before the jury?
So we discussed this in the previous segment. When you're in front of a jury, you need to be presentable. But she's a pageant queen, so you don't want to go too far. You don't want to appear that, look, she's trying to appeal to us because she was a pageant queen. So you need to dress her. I would dress her like she was going to a wake, somber, her hair done, makeup if they're allowed to do that, look presentable, but not make her look pageant quality. You don't want the jury to believe that you're trying to dress her up to impress them that she's a pageant queen. You want her to look somber. It's a murder trial. So you need to, dress her appropriately, but not go too far.
Yeah, that's great advice, Mario. So we know that these allegations are stunning, that she's caring for this child and said to have inflicted blunt force trauma on the baby, to the baby's head, to the baby's torso. Dr. Priya, what do you think when you hear that she allegedly caused disfigurement to his liver and rendered his brain useless?
They're very, I would say, lay words used to describe incredibly violent acts and severe injuries to him. So it's a very succinct way of saying that there was massive head trauma. He probably lost consciousness. There's probably swelling of the brain and blunt trauma to the belly, the abdomen, where the liver can be ruptured, split, lacerated, injured basically, where the force is transferred into the solid organ and causing bleeding. And so those are just huge forces. Okay, babies, especially, in this age group, are made to be, I say, rubbery, bouncy. They have a lot of give to them to prevent injury. So it takes a lot to hurt them, especially to these alleged degrees.
That's really helpful information to carry with us, Dr. Priya, as we get ready to hear the evidence. And Mario, before any evidence can be admitted, we know we got to get this jury seated, and I would imagine it would be tough with this baby death case. Speak to us, based on your experiences, Mario, when you're picking. Let's look at it from the defense side, if you don't mind. What kind of jurors do you think the defense is going to be looking for here?
So I had this in the Gregor case when you have a small child and the same type of injury, blunt force injury. You want to find a smart juror. You want to find, I prefer woman jurors, believe it or not, in a case like that, where people look at me and they're like, why a woman? They have childbirth. They nurture children. Well, they also listen. And they also, are unemotional when it comes to taking something very serious. Where a man, men on a jury on a case like this, like, I can't believe this man did this to a child. So, I try to find smart, middle-aged women who are, in tune with, what my defense is. This is going to be a battle of experts. Sort of like Gregor, it was a battle of Bodden versus Andrews. It was the pathologist battle. So that's what this is going to be. How did this child sustain these injuries? Did she give these injuries to the child, or was the child injured prior to this, or what happened? So absolutely going to be a battle here of experts.
Yes, as you said, that's going to be so key, Mario. Dr. Priya, when you're called in to give expert witness testimony as a forensic pathologist and you have a prosecutor asking questions, if I were that prosecutor, what I would be asking someone like you, Doc, would be, what kind of suffering did baby Jackson endure? I would want to make the point to the jury how horrific and painful his death was. Can you help us understand what he might have felt as a little helpless baby receiving such force to his body?
Sure, and it really depends on the baby's age, but regardless, babies can feel pain. And so they may not be able to verbalize it, but it's going to be very uncomfortable. As a mom and a pathologist, I hope he didn't suffer too much. So if there's severe head trauma, we look for like bleeding associated with the injuries. The head trauma hopefully would make him unconscious, but the abdominal injuries, or if the head trauma wasn't immediately incapacitating, maybe it took multiple blows, then that is painful. The pressure both in the belly and the head, that's going to hurt. It's going to make them irritable. Again, I think we've all felt pain at much lesser degrees. And I know people feel pain differently, but again, this is very violent. And so when there's bleeding into the belly, that's an irritant. There's swelling associated with it. And again, in the brain, the head, anything that hurts the brain and the skull and the scalp, we're going to have pain.
Oh, it's just dreadful to think about. This is helpful preparation as we get ready for this case to begin today. Little 18-month-old baby Jackson should still be here with us. A great discussion with you both. Dr. Priya Banerjee, attorney Mario Gallucci, thank you both so much. And thank you, friends at home, for being with us for Opening Statement.
That's all for this episode of Opening Statements, my friends. I'm your host, Julie Grant, and it's been great being with you. On this show, I am calling out any pants on fire moments in our big trials and true crime stories, and I want you to come along with me. Opening Statements is live every weekday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern on Court TV. Thank you for downloading this episode. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. You can watch past shows anytime you like on CourtTV.com.